everyone, welcome to our lesson on skies. First off, I just wanted to go through the colours. It's going to be a sunny day or a midday sky, not a sunset or a sunrise. We'll do that next lesson because that changes things with colour. So for now, I just want to focus on technique, tone and using blues. Okay, so the main blue for a blue sky that I will use is going to be phthalo blue. That phthalo blue is the primary blue. It's the lighter, prettier blue. So I've named all the paints that I used out here and put them by brand and colour on this palette. This is Derwent Phthalo Blue. Now, another brand which I like for phthalo blue is Daler Rowney, and I do use quite a few Daler Rowney colours as well. The reason why I like this Daler Rowney is, and hopefully you can see this here, is because it is even more vibrant and prettier than the Derwent. I'll put the names up for these. And so when you think about a sky blue, that there to me is the truest of the phthalo blues to use. Then we go around to a colour that I may not have even spoken of earlier in my lessons, but it's called cobalt blue. And this is the Daler Rowney cobalt blue. Now, let me just continue on to ultramarine before I start to explain. So this is the Derwent ultramarine blue. This is the Art Spectrum ultramarine blue. And this is another one I like, which is Senelia. I don't know if people know this brand very much, but it has some great colours. This is sort of an intermediary one. I like to think of it almost as a cobalt. Now I'll leave it there because I want to talk to you about these colours. So first of all, phthalo, we know these two are primaries and cannot be mixed using any other colours. But then we get to this one called cobalt blue. Cobalt blue and ultramarine blue live in the same family of blues. The reason is because they are not a primary. Remember, there's only 3 primaries on the colour wheel, magenta, blue and yellow, but ultramarine blue sits right next to phthalo blue. So cobalt blue, on a more graduated and detailed colour wheel, cobalt blue sits even in between ultramarine and phthalo blue. The reason is because if I had a cobalt blue and I wanted to make it ultramarine blue, all I'd need to do is, I'll get some more cobalt here. So there's my cobalt. Yes. So I put my cobalt down here and I'm trying to build an ultramarine out of my cobalt blue. What can I add to it? What am I heading towards? On the colour wheel, if I'm cobalt here, ultramarines here, I'm going in this direction. What's the first primary I'm going to run into? Magenta. So if I add the tiniest touch of magenta, can you see how even the smallest amount of magenta added to my cobalt is giving me an ultramarine? Okay, so if I wanted to become even more intense, I could go to a really nice crimson red. Yes, this one. So that's a crimson red, which means it's a pinky red. And if I have my cobalt, and I want to add the tiniest bit of crimson red, you can see how I'm darkening that colour. I look at this and I think, oh, I still want to add my magenta, because remember, magenta, red's got a bit of yellow in it, and yellow and blue make green, so it's not perfect, but magenta is pure. So when I keep adding little bits of magenta in, I'm starting to get more like a French ultramarine. So far we've got phthalo, cobalt, which is a version, a lighter, less red / magenta version of French ultramarine, and then we get into our darker colours, okay? And for me, that's Prussian blue. Now, Prussian blue for me, I call it the older, more tanned sibling of phthalo blue, because it just looks like a darker, deeper version. You can see how they marry together really well. I'm using a phthalo blue sky, and I've got my Prussian blue. So that's Daler-Rowney Prussian. Then I've got my darkest of darks, which goes to Payne's Grey. So I've got 3 different versions here, 3 different brands. This is my favourite. This is Derwent. You've seen me use this quite a bit, and you've seen me overlay it as a wash for shadows. It's an all-rounder, I believe. It's a bluish tint. Now that's Derwent. This is Daler-Rowney's Payne's Grey, which I believe is a more neutral black. And this, believe it or not, is Art Spectrum's Payne's Grey. Which is very, very bluey green. So why am I showing you these? Because these are my darkening agents when I do a typical sky, and depending on what colours there are in my painting will depend on which one of these I would use. My go-to again is my Derwent. That's why I love my Derwent palette, because I'm so happy with all these colours. But the Payne's Grey is kind of a happy go-between, not being, you know, too blue and not being too black and neutral. Also, if you had to, remember, I'm going to teach you all, hopefully as time goes by, well, if you stay, how to understand colour, not just how to mix it, but how to use it and why you're using that and why you should tint it with magenta or yellow or whatever. So you don't have to go out and buy so many colours, but also because you'll just know what to do. So I look at this colour here, that's my phthalo blue, and I look at it and I think, yeah, that Daler-Rowney phthalo blue kind of relates to this a little bit. So if I wanted to try and mix that colour, I didn't have it, let's try, there's my Daler-Rowney phthalo blue. And I'm just testing it out to see if this is going to work. And then I could think I could add, okay, well, that might not be dark enough. I might try and add my Derwent Payne's Grey. Derwent Payne's Grey. It looks like it's not going to be green enough, but I'm okay with that. That's not too bad. Not too bad at all. So you can figure out basically how to make these if need be. But essentially, I'm working with phthalo, ultramarine, or in this stage, a tube of cobalt blue. And then I'm working with perhaps Prussian, or my Payne's Grey is my only darker colours. Okay, hopefully I haven't confused you too much. I did forget to add, this is a colour I've used over the years. Actually, I've used it in skies that aren't just blue, but I do find it's handy to have if you do want to have a little bit of heavier cloud in your picture. It's called Art Spectrum Permanent Mauve. This is it here. You can see it's already separated since I've poured it out, because it is a purple, but remember, purple is made from blue and magenta, 2 primaries. And can you see how in here, before I mix it back, it looks quite, there's actually like a little surrounding colour of the pure magenta. The problem with magenta is it doesn't mix well. So you really do need to keep things mixed with magenta. It's just the nature of the pigment in it. But you can see now how truly purple that is, whereas before when you looked at it, it just looked really purple. Put it down here. And what it is a less pretty purple, less vibrant purple, I guess. But I love it because of its subtlety. Now, in saying that, knowing that it's blue and magenta, of course we can make that if you don't need to go out and buy that colour, but we've got the recipe for it right here. So let's just say here's the Derwent Ultramarine Blue. There we go. And then I'm adding in my pure magenta, my other primary. I just want to check how much is there. And however much more I keep adding, it's going to get more and more pinky purple. But that's pretty close. So you can see how knowing those three primaries of your phthalo blue, magenta and yellow will help you build your library of colours. For me, the relaxation I get from painting does come from not having to sort through so many colours, tubes, and figure out which one is which.